All right, it's time for Yogi and the Beach Man. Hi, I'm Jim the Yogi.
And I'm Rick Beach, the Beach Man.
We're two Michigan transplants now living in Southwest Florida.
In fact, we're cousins born in 1964, just a month apart.
I like to meditate.
And I like to play bass in a band.
I'm into chanting Om.
And I'm into throwing down some classic rock.
But together, we're on a mission
to promote people that are helping other people.
We want to make the world a better place.
One conversation at a time.
So sit back,
turn up the volume,
and get ready to laugh.
Because we like to have fun
while we spread the love.
Interviewing lovely people. Yes, we have fun.
Welcome to Yogi and the Beach Man. We are here again with Dr. Patricia Timerman, Barbosa de Silva. It's her second time on the show. We're super excited about it. Her new book just came out, Why Are We Fighting? Actionable Strategies for Effective Communication. Dr. T, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so glad to be back. I had such a wonderful time with you guys last time, so I was excited to see you again.
Oh,
we did
thanks.
too. Yeah, thank you. We're excited to have you back as well. So your book's out, and I got to tell you, I'm really excited about it. So Why Are We Fighting? Actionable Strategies for Effective Communication. My wife and I have been doing this book. We've been we've been going through it little at a time, not rushing through it, and actually having conversations, talking about what this means to us as far as intentions, our actions, our perceptions. And it's I can't say it's all smooth. It could be a little rocky at times figuring out communications, but I believe in it because communication is so important in any relationship.
Yeah. But I love what you said, which is like we're taking our time, right? And it really allows for communication. I think one of the things that we talked about last time was that self-awareness. And I think that part of this book is allowing us to identify like what was my actual intention behind this, right? If it didn't come across, how can I make it come across? Am I able to do it at the moment when I'm triggered? Does it come after the fact? Am I able to ever bring it to before the fact?
Yes. That's been a big part of our conversations lately is what our triggers are, because I don't actually always realize what my triggers are until after they've happened.
Yeah.
So,
I don't have the book right in front of me, but in the part, and I think is in the first chapter when I talk about triggers and defense mechanisms, I pose questions, right? And one of them is, what is the behavior that whomever is doing that is triggering you, that is making you feel some type of way or trigger a nasty response or, like that defensiveness or being bothered, whatever it is. And then does it precede the relationship? Like, is this something that you've noticed when you think of its origination? Did it come from somebody else or did it originate here? Because if it came from somebody else or from something else, then does it belong to the here and now?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I know for myself, I'm not, we've been together for over 10 years and I'm not always sure if it's from here now or if it came from before, but either way, it's good to identify and be aware of them and then work through them.
Yeah. I mean, I love to say waka, with awareness comes action. And when we're not aware, we just keep on making the same mistake again and again, right? It's very normal. If you don't notice that there's like a punctuation error, you just keep on making it until you realize that, oh, shit, there's like an error here. And then you can choose not to do anything about it, which is an action all on its own. Or you can be like, you know what? I'm done with this. I got to change this.
Yeah, it reminds me of a couple episodes ago. We had a podcaster on who was a TM, transcendental meditation meditator. I've known how to say the word, but at the time I was saying transcendental. I said it a few times before she finally corrected me and said she did it so nicely too. She said, "I'm going to help you here. It's transcendental." And I like hitting myself on the side of the head. Of course it is.
But again, we don't notice it, right?
Right.
It's like in writing the book, let me tell you, one of the things is, when you read something so many times that you're no longer reading it, you're reciting by memory. So it's if I hope that there are no mistakes because like you give it to somebody else to read it and all that, but you really are reciting by memory. It's really difficult for you. So even when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we see what's in our mind's eye, right? We need to be observing it for a moment for us to actually see what's over there, because the moment we see what we want to see, and then we have body dysmorphia and all that beautiful, not beautiful, but all that good stuff, because we see what we believe we will be seeing, what's in our mind's eye.
Yeah, good point. You're gonna say something.
No, I'm just kind of taking this in right now. It's
Okay.
a little bit out of my wheelhouse, so I'm just kind of listening.
No worries. So, for the new listener that didn't catch your first podcast, do you want to explain your communication model?
Yes. So I call it the IAP model: intention, action, perception. And it's essentially the relationship between all three. What I've noticed, and those who read the book, you will see that there are many anecdotes where I talk about my relationships, being with my husband, my in-laws, or whomever it is, where this was kind of born from. But I noticed that our intention is internal to us. Only I know my intention, or you guys know your intentions behind the things that you do or don't do. But perception is also internal to the person receiving or observing it. What happens is that our actions don't always correctly translate our intentions, right? Or it may be perceived in a very different way than we intended it to. And so the IAP model brings awareness to that not all actions have a universal meaning. A great example that I can give, and I don't know if I talked about this last time or not. This is not statistical. I did not do a study on this. It's just an empirical thing that I've noticed with couples. You often have one party who uses silence. And many times I'll notice the males tend to use silence. And the intentionality behind silence in a fight is, I don't want to make matters worse, or I don't know what to say, so let me just sit over here until this dies down. But silence.
That's me.
Okay. So you
Totally guilty.
Totally guilty. And me, but I don't think for those reasons. I just don't want anything to do. And I just withdraw, and I just leave me alone. Stay in there. Give me a day.
I come out of, right? So my silence is, I need to process this. It's too much for me right now. I need a moment. The thing is that silence speaks volumes, but it does not speak what you want it to when the other person is interpreting. So many times your silence may be taken as you don't care. And so I'm going to speak even more and more emphatically and more frustrated with you because you don't care. Your silence is demonstrating me that, which wasn't the intention of the silence. Jim, you just said mine is I withdraw. Like right now, I can't deal with all of this. I need time to process. If I don't know that about you, I'm going to interpret your silence however I see it. And it can get lost in translation. But if I know that that's your process, I'll be like, okay, he withdrew. He's no longer present. So me continuing to argue will not help. So let's reconvene at another time.
Yeah, I'm actually the opposite. It's for me, it's not wanting to withdraw. It's just not wanting to escalate. Sometimes it feels like there's nothing you can say that's not going to make this worse. So it's better to say nothing, which never
And how
works.
has that worked for you?
Never works. It doesn't go well, but at the same time, I don't always know what to say.
Well, it's possible to say stuff and not escalate, which I agree. My main goal, if I'm having a discussion with somebody, is I don't want to escalate. I'll never get it to the yelling, and when it does, then I know I need to back down, or I'm not controlling my emotions properly if I'm escalating. So I will always try to ramp it down. But I have noticed that in my relationships over the years have changed, where with my first wife, she would be the one that just sucked into her and wouldn't talk. And I couldn't stand it. And I was the one screaming and saying, yeah, what are you talking? Why can't you talk to me? Blah, blah, blah. Now it's 180 degrees. Now I'm that same person, but it's not really, it's not to be vindictive or spiteful toward the other person. It's just leave me alone for a bit. I just need some time to away or just leave me. I just really want to be left alone at that point.
So do people know that that's the intention behind your behavior?
Yeah, but then I get turned on me, exactly what I used to say to her, my ex-wife years ago, how long is this going to last? Are we done it tomorrow at noon or tomorrow, are we talking Saturday at 8:30?
So I appreciate that. I joke with my husband that I say in my previous life, but in a previous relationship, I had a relationship with it. I'm the type of person that in Brazil we say like you don't take dirty laundry home. If we're mad, I just want to get it over with here and now, right? I don't want to maintain it. But this ex-boyfriend of mine, he would take a moment. But what I mean a moment, it was like maybe like a week. And during that week, my anxiety was so high because I did not know what's going on through your mind. Are we together? Are we like, so my mind wouldn't stop and he needed that time. So it's when you say like, how long do you need? I think there is a negotiation because I'm disrespecting my time and yours at the same time to find a common ground. So let's go to a strategy. When we talk about code words, I've had clients that have is exactly this, right? I want to talk and just get it over with. I need time to process. So they've used, I don't remember what the code word is. I think it was lollipop, but it meant we can't talk about it now, but we'll address it again in 24 hours, right? So the person who's anxious to talk about it knows that this is not an indefinite amount of time that we're not talking about this, because it causes me to feel the urgency to talk. And the other person has the 24 hours to cool down. And during that time, they were still able to text each other, but just not about the issue. So they will text each other, good morning, good night, all of that. But the issue will only go back to it in 24 hours.
Okay.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that would work for some.
Although in my experience, I don't know. I think that would be a good thing to start with.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. Sometimes I just, but we should talk about this not on the air. Maybe we should. Maybe we should.
But like we have these learned behaviors, right? The defense mechanisms. So we learn when people are yelling, for example, that means that you are agitated, right? Or it's escalated. But there are some people that culturally speaking, they just speak louder, right? Mm-hmm. So it seems to some people that they are escalating or agitated, whereas to them it's like, no, I'm just impassioned. So even when we're talking about communications, when we don't know the intentionalities or we don't know each other, then we tend to believe that you see the world from my point of view, because that's the only point of view that exists. That's what I grew up with. I can't think of another type of another point of view. And that's when things tend to get lost in translation. So the IAP, the idea behind it is to really bring awareness as to how well or how not well we know the people that we're dealing with and how well do they know us or we know ourselves. So then we can learn and talk about how to communicate better.
Yeah, one of the things you said in our last conversation was like you come home from work and you're stressed out and lots of things happen and you just want to vent. And so all of a sudden you start venting, and then your partner's giving you solutions. It's a helicopter going by. It's really loud. We'll pause for a second here.
Could you hear that? No.
Couldn't hear it on your end. I'm sure it picked up on our mic.
Loud.
Really loud. Anyway, so the partner's offering suggestions and solutions, and you didn't want those. You just wanted to vent. So we've gotten good at that by saying, hey, I just need to vent. And it's working. We're setting that intention, and then we don't feel like, oh, we got to offer a million solutions and, tell you what you should. That's another word we've been trying to cut out of our vocabulary, is what you should do.
I mean, when you're in conversation with Abby, you mean? That's what
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
No, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
the
been really helpful.
That's the preamble, right? Like letting you know what I need from you before the conversation. I like that a lot. Like we use that all the time. And actually, so I need to give credit to you guys, because after our conversation, one of the things that I remember, I think it was Jim you brought up, was for the preamble, I said that there are two functions. The first one is letting you know what I need from you from the coming interaction. And the second one was to let you know the intention behind what I'm going to say. So I gain a little bit of grace, because I know I'm likely going to use wrong word choices or go on tangents, right? And you say, well, doesn't that give you the opportunity to be an asshole? Right.
Oh,
And
I think
so,
Rick said that.
yeah. And so I added to the book, and this was right before the release. I added to the book, like, this is not a green card for you to be mean or hurtful. Unless that's your intention, then you need to let your intention be known. I want to be mean and hurtful, so I'm going to say these things. Or I am hurting and therefore I want to hurt, so I'm going to say things. Please don't pay attention to them, because I will be hurtful. Right. But as long as I'm setting what the intention is, but it's that both sides need to have, how can I put it? Like it needs to have like good faith. So I need to give credit to you, and I love that I got the opportunity to be here again, to be able to vocalize it. So it's on record.
Did you mention Rick in the
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
credits?
I was gonna roll through the credits there, and
I know, right? Please put that on the yes. But
thank you to the beach man.
No, we'll split. We're half and half in this thing, Jim.
All right,
it's both of us. We split it.
Okay,
that's right. That's true. That's very true.
That's funny.
But yeah, so like one of the things that I love about my profession, what I do, is it's symbiotic, right? Although like I'm in session, I'm providing, guidance and information and listening, I always take something from it. And even in podcasts, right? I feel like I took that, or like there's always something that I get to take with me. So I appreciate it. I appreciated that.
Well, I was in Tuesday's podcast, we had a really cool guest, and I was telling her that exactly what you just said. Each one, I treat each one of these little hours, and we get great people like you and the Chris Vogelsong, the hypnotherapist, and this is like I get 2 hours of weekly therapy for nothing. That's kind of how I look at this. And it really does help me out personally, because I take these little tidbits from you or her, these people that are a lot smarter than me, and use them and put them to use. And I can see it's making a difference in my day-to-day life, which is really cool.
that is
Awesome.
And I hope that that's the same for people that are listening in.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully.
They're getting some tips and making some change in their lives, making the world a better place, one conversation at a time, right?
There we go.
All right.
I love it. I love that. You can probably write like a nice book just with all the tips that I've gotten from the different conversations that I've
Yeah.
That might be a cool idea. I should start taking like my highlights, just start a little journal, and then put them in a little composite book, or put them all together, and my little sniglets.
Memoirs of podcasting.
A podcasting memoir.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I love that. I love that. What's the intentionality behind it? I'm just kidding.
And we'll give you credit for helping bring up the idea. We will put that in our book.
I got that.
All right. I want to hear the answer to the question of what would be the intentionality behind the memoirs?
Oh, the intent, really just to refer to and help other people gain the insight that I've been lucky enough to get over the last 6 months or year or however long this goes on for, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's one of the really interesting things about my profession. I'm very lucky that I love what I do, but every question has to be purposeful, right? Like if I'm going to self-disclose in a session, it has to be purposeful. I had a professor, Dr. Rudis, and I love what he used to say. Is like, if you raise your hand, do you want to be interesting or interested? It's like, if you want to be interesting, you just want people to hear what you have to say. If you want to be interested, there's curiosity, right? And to be able to have the conversation going. And I think part of the IAP was that is understanding what's the purpose behind the word choices. Or, what is the intention? What purpose will it serve? How would it help? I love the filter. What purpose will it serve? And it's saved my ass a couple of times when I was about to say something. I'm like, what purpose will it serve? I'm like, actually, it's not going to serve me any purpose to say this right now.
Mm-hmm. I remember you talking about that in the last podcast. And that just reminded me of something that I heard in a yoga retreat that I was with this pretty famous guru. And one of the things he was kind of getting across, something very similar, is what's the most loving thing I can do right now? And to have that in your mind and in your thoughts and in your intentions at any moment, what's the most loving thing I can do right now?
Oh, I love that.
It's such a great intention. I use it a lot. Sometimes I forget, I'm not perfect, but I try to go back to it, because it changes not only your intention, it changes your actions. And hopefully the perceptions come across, right?
And it's the attitude, right? It's the mindset. Is how can I do a reset? I was talking with a client today, and one of the things that we talked about was like, sometimes when there are certain people around, or certain people will be around, you already have an anticipation of what is going to be like. And so your entire body feels whatever you think, what your attitude is. So if there's somebody that I know would be bothered, that I'm bothered by, my body will contract already. Right. So if I'm able to have that mantra in my mind, just a repetition of the state of mind that I want to be in, it can help with de-escalating my physiological response, right? It's Pavlov, it's the concept of classical conditioning, right? When I think of something that bothers me, my body reacts. I'm in defense mode, I'm contracted. So resetting my mindset may reset my body and make it more relaxed, and my attitude. I love that.
I do too. And I want to apologize. I got right into I brought you on the show where we started the show. I got right into you being an author and your new book. And I don't think I mentioned that you're also a licensed mental health counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so when you talk about your work, if you're new and just listening,
that you got some cred.
That you have some cred, yeah. And that's what you're doing by meeting in your appointments and whatnot. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would just say psychotherapist for short. My husband will tell me, like, you have so many letters after your already gigantic name. So psychotherapist, I think, would be the best summation.
Yeah. And I went on your website. You're the founder of Advocate to Create, advocate2create.com. I'll put that up in the links, and it'll be on the video here for people to find it easily. But you have a free what do you call it? A worksheet that people can start this process with if you're not going to jump out and buy the book right away. And I got on and downloaded it all and never did any of it. I'm guilty of that, but but I'm honest about it. And but I knew we were working towards it. We just didn't have time. We had a lot going on. And then your book came out, and I was like, okay, we're really busy, but I got the book and we started it. So we're on the right path here.
And we did have a couple of hurricanes. It's not like you haven't been a little busy.
Yeah.
But, and I'll say, like, so the worksheets, the one that you're mentioning is the rule of three interpretations, which I think we talked a little bit about last time, because in the book, I have strategies for both the one communicating and the one receiving the communication. Right. And in the rule of three interpretations, which is in my training platform, is advocate2create.teachable.com. I have the video and the worksheet. But what I was going to say is I'm a kinesthetic learner. I'm visual kinesthetic, right? I learned or process my thoughts a lot through doing. So right now, because I'm interacting or having conversations, I can be auditory because we're going organically. But when I'm listening, I will always have a pen and paper, because that's how I process information. There are people who are auditory learners. One of my best friends is an auditory learner, and I tell her being friends with me must be the most frustrating thing to you, because I don't remember stuff. She remembers everything. But the reason that I did the worksheets is, so there are people that they will read it once and it stays with them and they're able to do it, and great. When you go to that link for the rule of three interpretations, I have a video where I tell you about the rule of three interpretations that I can go over in a minute. But the worksheet are for those who like the process of like the visualization and understanding, like, let me write down my thoughts. What is it really that I am thinking? What am I going through? What are my body sensations? So some people may love the worksheets, some people may not need them.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm like you. I need that. I need to do to learn. I can't just listen. So it's a lot of time. Like, I'm a nurse and I just went through an orientation at a facility, but it's like, you telling me doesn't do any good. You need to let me actually do it, and then I'll learn. Once I've done it once or twice, I've got it. But you telling me 10 times, 20 times, it ain't sticking. It doesn't matter.
Same with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Or when people want me to retain information, if you are saying like without pausing, oh no, it's not staying. Right.
Mhm.
I need pauses in between so I can process it.
Yeah.
And I love that, because even in the whole IAP thing is having that becomes imperative. I have a really good friend of mine, is that she go like, there's a lot happening at once, like a lot of stimuli. So if she's playing Candy Crush while she's talking to you, she's paying attention. When she's not, if she's not engaging and she's not doing anything else, she's not paying attention. But if you're talking to somebody and they're playing Candy Crush, what do you think?
Yeah, they're not listening.
They're not listening. So if you don't know that about them, then you will take that they're being rude.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas to her, it's the complete opposite. I know that when she's playing, when we're talking, she's engaged.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I was actually in nursing school and studying, a lot of times I'd have to have music on, or something on YouTube, or some program, or something else going on for me to read through what I was reading and absorb it. My wife would be like, "How do you learn with all that distraction?" It's like, I think the distraction makes me focus.
I was similar. I remember at NYU, and it's a very vivid experience. Funny thing, at NYU, I did, my major was political science. I did intro to poli-sci and intro to psych, because I was pre-med. That's what you focus on. After both intros, I said no to psychology, and I went into political science, and look at me today, right? But I remember like going super early for my final in psychology, going super early to the library. There was no one there. It was awesome. And then as people started to come in, any noise distracted me so much. And at NYU, like the library is in front of Starbucks. And so I'm like, okay, let me try this. And I went across the street and I went to Starbucks. And because there's a base of noise, it wasn't any little thing that would distract me. And from that moment onward, from my bachelor's, my master's, my doctoral, I will always do my study at a coffee shop, which to many people was like, what, like, what are you doing here? There's so much noise. There's people talking. I'm like, no, being in the silence today bothers me, because noise takes my attention away. Having a bass noise is great. So again, different people would look at it or perceive it differently depending on their own experiences.
See, some of my bass noises, if I'm in a lot of people's living rooms in my real job during the day. I'm a solar guy. I talk about solar, electric, pool heating, that kind of thing. So I'm always in people's houses, sitting with them out there on their patios or whatever. I notice if I walk into someone's house to talk to them and they have the news on in the background, it's just talking. I have to literally try really hard to focus that conversation out of my head. It's so distracting, especially when the commercials come on. I will actually tell people, hey, would you mind? Could you just turn that down just a little bit? Because sometimes it's just blasting, blaring. When I'm by myself, I work from home most of the time. If I'm sitting there at home, I can't have any news on or conversation behind me like that. I could do the coffee shop, no problem, but not the TV or even music. I don't really like too much, but I can listen to like two cellos or classical where I don't have any lyrics. If it's just music, I'm fine with that.
It's the melody line. It's people talking.
It's the distraction and the volume changes from an electronic source only. I don't know. Now I sound really picky, but it just seems like if it's on a TV or a radio, and when the volume changes from the to the commercials, and it just goes loud, and like that is a trigger. And I'm serious, that's a bad trigger for me, especially in my own house. Like at 10 o'clock in the morning, if I wake up or if I walk in and the TV's on, I don't want that because it's my day. The last thing I need is a distraction on the wall.
Yeah.
Because it is a huge distraction. I just can't get anything else done.
Yeah, I can't imagine the TV being on in our house during the day.
No,
I mean,
it's not on at my
maybe
house.
an hour or two in the evening, but that's about it.
But the only thing that's on really my house is Leave It to Beaver and sports. Roku has a Leave It to Beaver channel, and I've been like, Ward and June were my foster parents growing up. Me and my brother just grew up watching that show. Now it has its own Roku channel, so it's on 24/7, and it's such a feel good.
It's wholesome.
It always just feels good. And Mrs. Cleaver, she always dresses so nice.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just a great. Are you familiar with the?
No, I'm not, but now I need to be.
It's set in the late 50s. It's about Wally and the Beav. That he's like 13, Beaver's like 7, and Ward and June, they're typical late 1950s American family, and it's about the Beav, the
youngest son,
and it runs for like 9 seasons, and you literally watch him grow up, and it just gets better and better through the seasons. But we started at episode 1, season 1, and now I'm on and just going through them again.
Very good.
So, but check it out, Leave It to Beaver. I know you'll like it. Your daughter, right? She's the author, also, correct?
Who?
Doesn't your daughter have some books out, or?
No, you're confused. That's a different doctor.
Oh, it is. I apologize. Yeah, it is. That's Dr. Schaefer.
Yeah.
My daughter is a canine. If she wrote a book, I'd be very impressed.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sorry about that.
That'd be a great book.
No, not at all. What is it? Liver to Beaver?
Leave it.
Leave It to Beaver.
Leave It to Beaver. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm writing
and
it.
It's on
You said a Roku station.
It's on Roku. It has its own TV station, but it's also on Paramount Plus in demand. You can watch it. Yeah, you will get life lessons out of it. You will get stuff out of Leave It to Beaver you will use with patience.
Okay. I love
and
it.
probably your next book.
And your next book. And then you have to give me credit.
So I have actually started thoughts on the next book because I noticed that there is always like more when you're developing like a theory, and I want to do a study. I want the IAP to become a best practice to use across different relationships, right? Kind of like where you have cognitive behavioral therapy, Gottman. So I want to be able to do a longitudinal study to identify its efficacy, right? To be able to turn it into best practice. But there are things that I kept on thinking of. You can't put everything in a book, otherwise you never finish the book. But there are things that I wanted to add. And so I kind of started my thoughts in the second one. And one of them, and I don't know how eloquently I'll be able to share this that's in my mind, but one of the things that I've noticed, and I talked about this in a couple sessions that I had today, was the concept of like our mind's eye, right? Sometimes when we get bits of and pieces of information, we put them together and we create a narrative in our mind, and we may not have the full data set to be able to have a chronology, but we fill in the blanks. Right. And our narrative may or may not be what actually happened. So an example that I can give my husband, oh my God, I hope that he's okay with me always sharing our information. But there was this one day that I had a break between like for lunchtime. And so did he, and he asked, hey, do you want to take our daughter, Kita, to the dog park? And I said, no, I'm not feeling good. I don't want to do it. It's like, okay. I finish work and then I go to the gym with my friend. And he got frustrated with me when I got back because he said, you didn't want to go to the park with me, that's fine. You said you weren't feeling good, but then you go all happy go lucky to the gym with your friend, and it made me feel some type of way. And I respected that. I said, that's fair. And in your mind's eye, you saw me say no to you because I wasn't feeling good, but saying yes to somebody else, and now I'm feeling good all of a sudden. I respect that that's what you saw. So let me give you more information. I didn't go all happy. I went very grudgingly to the gym with her because it was an accountability, and it's important for me, for my taking care of self, not even self-care, but taking care of self, that I go to the gym to release, especially in days when I'm not good, to release physically all my stress and my angst. So me going was not me going happily, was better some than none, just do a little bit and then come back home. Right. So, but the reason that I'm saying that is, once I form a narrative in my mind, I become very close to other information. And especially when people say, I'm sorry, but, and you're like, you don't give me a but, you only say I'm sorry. But when my I'm sorry, but is just because I want to give you more information to correct the data, to make a more accurate narrative in your mind, then it is warranted. The I'm sorry, but that we don't like is when you're deflecting from the I'm sorry. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So thoughts for
Deflecting from the I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's two ways to do the I'm sorry, but. It's like, I'm sorry, but you did something to make it happen. Or there's, I'm sorry, but you don't have all the information. So let me share a little bit more. And that's, I think, what you're saying, to share a little bit more to make this, to build better context or to give a better picture of what happened.
I don't think I've ever said I'm sorry, but to anyone, and I don't think I would ever accept an I'm sorry, but.
Okay.
Sorry butts are just sorry butts.
I had a person that I worked with that he was my boss, and whenever like you did something that he disliked, he wanted an apology, of course. But many times I saw things in a different way, and it wasn't the I'm sorry, but like and saying what you did wrong, but it was just, I wanted to be able to share with you the reason I did this, to be able to learn for next time, if something similar were to happen, what would I do? And I felt very frustrated at times because I was never able to grow from that process, or to express my point of view in acting that way, or the reason that I did what I did. It had to be just the apology and nothing else. So to me, it felt like there wasn't much growth from it, and he wasn't able to understand how I saw the world. It was only me who had to understand how he saw the world. Does that make sense?
Well, I was saying that from more of a personal relationship stuff. In my professional relationship, I have certainly said that many, many times.
Why would you? So if I could ask, if somebody said, I'm sorry, but what comes to your mind?
In a professional type situation, or a personal one?
In a personal one.
That is insincere.
Okay, how come?
How could you be apologetic to me and I'm sorry I did this to you or made you feel that way, but, and then what's the reason I did that? What would the but qualify? I mean, how can you qualify? You're either sorry or you're not. You're sincerely apologizing or you're not. I don't think it can be qualified by a but.
Okay. And I appreciate that, right? Because that's what we gain mostly, or we get mostly. In my experience with my husband, I've expressed like, I'm sorry if I made you feel that way. Not even I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm sorry if I've made you feel that way, but I wanted to let you know what was going through my mind, right? It's giving you context. It's not the insincerity because I felt apologetic for making him feel that I didn't care for him as much, or that, like that I brushed him to the side, but I wanted him to understand what was going through my mind at that moment, not to take away my responsibility or that insincerity, but to give more context. So I'm not taking away what you're saying. It's usually what I receive. Hence the reason that I want to write this in the book, because there are different purposes for the I'm sorry, but they're not.
Well, and that is, I mean, that's a great explanation, and it that makes sense. Like, if you were apologizing to me and you said it that way, I would change my tune instantly. So,
Yeah.
so that was well spoken. Now, in a professional relationship, I would look at that different. Like,
Okay.
like I would say that I would use that as a tool.
What makes it different from professional to personal?
Because the motives are different.
Why?
Because my motives at work are only to make a living for myself, and that's my goal. My intention when I get up and go to work is to make a living and make money. I don't go to make friends. I don't go to get trophies or awards. I've told my bosses, keep your plaques. Give me the $30 it costs. I don't need the acclaim and the pats on the back and the I don't want that. And so I would always say that, hey, I'm sorry about, I did this when I really wasn't, because I knew I was going to have to apologize when I did do it, but I knew I'd get away with it. So, hey, I'm really sorry I sold this $600 thing for $350, but I really just made a mistake and I needed to get this deal because of this or that or whatever. So I guess I was looking at I wasn't taking into context the way you said it back to me with your husband, which is a totally different situation. And the way that you said that was really, it really cleared it up, and it's totally different than a professional situation.
Yeah, and if I could say this, and you can so like hang up the call once I say that, what I was gonna say. I was like, I have this rule in therapy. What comes to my mind comes out through my mouth. I'm gonna continue with that rule in podcasting. But it's like if my use of it when I use I'm sorry, but is disingenuous, then my belief is that when somebody uses it to me is disingenuous.
Right. I could see how you could feel that way. And that's how I took that, but you just tore my argument to shreds when you did what you did. So I stand corrected. I will always, if I'm
No, but I think again we go back to intention, action, perception, because even with my boss, the one that I talked about, he was an amazing person. He's a brilliant individual. Like I really admired him a lot, but his experience was that an apology could never be followed by anything else because it would make it disingenuous. And that's because growing up, that's how he saw it. Maybe that's how he experienced it, or that's what was told to him, that there's never an I'm sorry, but because that takes away from the apology itself. So to him, there was no other way. To me, I just felt silenced because I'm like, I can never grow from this. I can never understand how to do things differently if we don't get to talk about this. I didn't get that chance, but because to him, probably growing up, he only knew that first I'm sorry, but. So I can't blame somebody who doesn't know anything different, because that's what we do, right? We grow up thinking that our way of seeing the world is the way.
Yeah, I feel like but is almost like a trigger on its own. Almost like if you said, I'm sorry, leave out the but. Here's what I was thinking, and here's why it went that way. That would be less of a trigger, because as soon as you throw that but in there, it's like it feels like a devaluation, or like, yeah, I'm not really sorry because I'm throwing out the but.
Yeah, maybe a however, nevertheless. Right?
Yeah. Isn't it softer?
however, yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose that
Or
could work.
not even say however, just like, here's what happened, or
Yeah.
here's what I was thinking.
I
You
love
know, not
it.
even turning, not a but, not a flip, not a however, just
Well, that's if that's even if the person you're apologizing to wants an explanation. They might
Yeah.
not even care to hear anything other
Mhm.
than, and then you might say, "Hey, I'm sorry, but hey, but nothing.
just
Just back off and give me a couple hours and chill and come back and we'll talk later."
the apology's enough.
But I appreciate that, right? Like, let's leave it here for now, and then we can grow from this later. Because I think it's impossible for people not to argue, Like when I do couples therapy or family therapy, I'm like, arguing is healthy. You just need to learn how to argue with a purpose, right? Arguing for the sake of arguing doesn't take us anywhere. So do I want to be stuck in something, or do I want to grow from it? If I use a negative experience, if I am, so I don't know if I talked last time about content versus process in therapy.
I
You're
don't think so.
I don't think
like,
so, yeah.
remember,
My eyes are rolling back. I'm like,
I know, right? So content are the details, right? The details of the things that happen. Process is what do we do with it? Right. I'm gonna go somewhere totally different for some reason, but my mind went there. So again, my rule comes to my mind, comes out through my mouth. I used to facilitate for about 10 years group for survivors of suicide loss. And the difference that you see at first from a facilitator versus members is a lot of the time somebody would come in and the question would be, well, how did this person die? Right? That's content. The process is, how have you been since this person died? Right? What's your day to day? How have you processed it? When the intrusive thoughts come, what do you usually do? So the reason that I'm saying that is content is important to give us context. But if I get stuck in the content itself, in the details, then I get stuck in the argument. I want to be able to move to, what have we learned from this negative experience? How can we use this as progress as opposed to a hole that I can get out of? Did that make
makes
sense?
sense. It does. Yes, that absolutely makes sense. I feel like you're going to say something.
No, I'm not.
Your lips are moving.
No, I'm just, like I said, some of this stuff I do, I'm just processing.
Yeah.
Because I'm relating. I'm just relating.
Yeah, and I think processing is so important. I mean, that's a lot. Like we're not speeding through your book. We're literally slowing down and processing. And I don't want to make it seem like we fight a lot or argue a lot. We don't. But when those moments come up, we just want to get better at it, you know,
Yeah.
so that they're shorter, so that they're clearer on our we are both clear on our communications and saying what we feel without hurting each other, without making it worse. It just, communication's so important. Just makes a stronger relationship. So, and we both realize that. But I also want to say, it's really interesting. She's a communications major. I've done a lot of communication classes in college. I've gotten three associate's degrees and a bachelor's degree, and communications in a lot of those programs. And I've never found anything as simple as what you're teaching in those communication programs. So I think you're onto something, and you have a good model here with IAP. So I'm excited about it. I mean, I think you could tell. I think you could feel my enthusiasm when I talk to you and when I talk about your book. So well
I
done.
hate that. Oh my God, that touches me. But I really love it because I don't think up to this, I don't think I've ever talked to somebody about how to communicate. Like, how do we, when we talk about teaching or learning, we talked about auditory learner, kinesthetic, visual. I remember in my classes, like when I teach, I always ask the first question, how do you learn best? Right? Are you auditory? So I know the tools that I need to use as a professor when I am talking to you. Right? If I have a student or a client who is kinesthetic, I can't just keep on throwing you a bunch of different theories verbally, because at one point you're just shut down. When I encounter a client, for example, with ADHD, I know that I need to go little by little. I need to identify where you got distracted, right? So when I know how you process information, like Rick, you already said a couple times, like, I need a moment, right? I'm processing this. I guess so. I know that we may not have an instant exchange, but I know that if I were to, give you a call tomorrow, you'd be like, oh my God, okay. So, right, we're learning how we process information and how we communicate. And I think it's so interesting to pause for a minute and understand, like, how do I communicate? Like, how do I receive information when people talk to me? Am I able to pay attention and exchange right there? One of the issues that I have with a couple is that one of the partners needs a moment. If I ask you to answer me right now, the word choices will be wrong. I'm going to say the wrong thing because I'm just putting a placeholder, and I am not having time to think and process. But now that placeholder is going to be taken as a really big deal, when it was just something that I threw there to be able to, like, say something. If I know that my partner needs a time or needs that moment, then right away I get to be like, okay, let me not pressure you to tell me things right now because it's just going to be wrong. I'll come back to it in a minute.
How much of that do you think has to do with being having an introverted mind or an extroverted mind? Because I feel like sometimes being an introvert that's now gotten more extroverted, sometimes that introverted part of me is just like, I'm not always processing as quickly, or I can't always vocalize the thoughts that are in my brain right away. And I need that little bit of time to process, sometimes a day, like you said.
I think it's nature and nurture.
Hmm.
It's our biology, of course, but how, like, growing up in our household, how was it, right? In our socialization, so in school, how was it? Every time that I would say something right away, did it get nitpicked? Therefore I learned to pause and process. Or did I learn that if I don't say it right now, it's never going to get said, right? So it's a little bit of both.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, that's one thing that doing this podcast has taught me to get better at. For years, I've done my company I work for. We do a local radio program. We sponsor a couple hours a month. I get to go on the air 2 hours a month to talk about the stuff we do at work. And when I listen to those shows back, and really when I was there in the studio, going back, and I've been doing it for a while, so I'm a lot better now than I was. But I was always just I had to talk really fast and get all that information out as fast as I could. And my brain would just be racing, next topic, next topic, next topic. And since Jim and I have been doing this, well, I take a deep breath. I've got better at that over the years on the radio, but this has really taught me to do that, where I will just talk through things, stop. I don't really talk fast anymore. I really try not to. Take a deep breath. Now, I do get off on tangents and forget where I started or where I was going, but that's why I have this in front of me now, so that helps. But it's just the way that changing, I don't know, I found that weakness in my communication skills, and I do that at home too. Now I've changed that not only in my professional life, but in my personal life too. Take a deep breath, slow things down. And not only does that help me comprehend things better, it really gives me a chance to process my thoughts, come out with the right words, and not say something stupid.
Yeah. So even when we just talked about, nature and nurture. So if I go into biology for a minute, at our mind and our brain, right? Like our psychology and our biology, they are intertwined. When we feel triggered, we communicate to our brain, like, I don't know, shit's about to hit the fan. So there's a little part of our brain, right? So you're a nurse, much more than I do about physiology, but the amygdala of our brain takes over. That fight, freeze, or flight takes over. So we call it the reptile brain. Now I am speaking emotionally and not rationally, right? So it's when you notice that your heart starts beating faster, because at that moment, enough oxygen goes to my brain so I don't die, but it goes towards my limbs if I need to fight, freeze, or flight. So you get flushed, you feel your body going, like your heart's going a lot faster, and you're just saying things that, again, you're not thinking. But if I take everything that you say at anger at face value, oh my God, then we have an issue. And it's part of when I communicate with my clients is, when people say, when you say something out of anger is when you're telling the truth, or when you say something when you're drunk, is like all of those like little sayings, like every joke has a little bit of a truth in it. Or I'm like, well, if the normal person that's in front of you usually is telling you something and doesn't do that, and atypically when they are at an agitated or a space where they are outside of themselves is when they do it, that's not their true person. Their true person is who you see day in and day out. right? That is so. It's just, again, the physiology. When we are so agitated, we can't regulate the things that come out. So when you say, like, I take a breath, you're bringing your body back to homeostasis. You're able to access your prefrontal cortex and actually think about what you're saying, and not just
Say that again, what you said a second ago. The true person is the person that they are day in and day out. Is that what you said?
Yeah, like, because, like, I sometimes I notice, like, okay, I know this is gonna be a silly example, but if somebody lies to me once, that does not mean that they are a liar. That meant that they lied to me once, but they always tell me the truth, but they lied to me once. I then want to know, why did you lie to me? Like, what was the instance? What was the intention behind it? When you lie to me all the time, now I can call you a liar, because now there's that pattern. But usually, if I say, what I hear a lot is, once a cheater, always a cheater. Once a liar, always a liar. When you said this out of anger, that's what you truly mean. That's how you truly see me. I was like, if that's not the pattern, if that's not how you see that individual, that was atypical, then we can categorize those words as how you truly see me. As in a moment of anger, in a moment of spite, I wanted to hurt you because I was feeling hurt. Did that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Because that, no, when you, as soon as you said that, it connected with me, and I just wanted you to expound on that. And yeah, thanks.
May I ask, what was it about it that connected?
No, not now. But I think you and I are gonna have our conversation in private one of these in the next couple of weeks. So
All right. So since the last time you're here, we started doing something on our podcast. We've been asking these questions. Dr. Patricia Timerman, Barbosa de Silva, what are you doing to make the world a better place?
Oof. It's a good question. I don't know. I try to be a good person.
Mhm.
I love what I do, so I get to talk with clients and process with them their emotions, but that's my profession. I hope that I'm helping make the world a better place through this experiences, and through being able to, talking, being either clients or friends. But I don't know. It's a good question.
I feel like I could answer it for you.
yeah, no, really, I think the whole hour answered it for you, because
Well-
and the way that you're helping people by, well, you're already helping. You helped JP and Abby with your book, and they've had it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, really, just being you.
Yeah, promoting a good, effective communication. I mean, you're helping relationships, and we build better relationships through communication. You're making the world a better place.
You guys are so good for my ego.
Well, we love you, Dr. T.
Patricia, I really enjoy having conversations with the two of you.
Likewise.
Next time I head to the Keys, we'll maybe JP, the four of us will make a trip down, and we'll stop and have lunch with you in Miami on the way or something.
Oh, I'd love that.
That would be cool, wouldn't
That
it?
would be really cool. I forgot you're in Miami.
Yeah,
That's
she's on
awesome.
the way to my brother lives. Well, you're halfway between here and his cousin, my brother's house down in the Keys. So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
go down quite often.
So long. Oh my God. Oh.
All right, well, any final thoughts before we conclude?
No, I would say, like, if you haven't yet, get this book. I'm very excited, and I think it's very helpful. Why are we fighting? I think that's a major question that we ask. I will share, and I don't know if I did talk to you about this other book from a colleague of mine called Your Apology Sucks.
Oh, your apology sucks.
Did we spend some time on that a little 20 minutes ago?
I know. His name is Dr. John Dabach, and he wrote it with his wife, Dr. Michelle Dabach. He actually has a podcast called Relationship Revival.
Okay.
He's known as Mr. Spirituality. So Final Thoughts is giving a shout out, because his
Very
What's
good.
the podcast again?
Relationship Revival.
Oh, I like that. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it was totally a pleasure having you on again.
Always.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Oh my God, this was awesome. Anytime do you guys like, hey, Dr. T, can you come? I'm like, yes, I can. I love talking to you guys. I really enjoy it.
All right, fabulous. All right, you take care.
Thanks, Dr. T. Great seeing you.
You as well. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So if you just listen to this podcast and you appreciate the content and the work that we're doing, we would love your support. Look in the comment section of this episode. Subscribe, rate us, comment. This gets our podcast in front of other listeners. And if you noticed, we don't have advertisers. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you can help keep it this way. Become a supporter right now. We'd appreciate it. I'm Jim the Yogi.
I'm Rick the Beach Man.
Peace.